This is The Future of Money, a podcast where we hope to educate and get educated about the new world of blockchain and digital money. And my name is Eric Den Boer, and I will be your host. Welcome, Lee and Jesper, to another episode. And since you are my co-conspirators, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Jasper Logan. I work for KUAF, Community Engagement. I make music and do some other cool, fun stuff. So, yeah.
My name's Lee Wood. I'm the general manager at KUAF.
Cool.
And Jasper met you. I'm just giving a little bit of brief background about how we got here. You guys met, right?
Yeah.
And started talking about was it NFTs that started the whole conversation?
Well, no, initially you reached out.
I sent you an email.
Yeah, he sent me an email inviting me to the Wednesday group that y'all do.
The Meetup group,
yep.
Yes.
And then we met up, and the more you told me about cryptocurrencies and NFTs and I asked a ton of questions. And the more you told me about those things, the more interested I got. And I was like, wait, more people need to hear about this.
Yes.
And that's kind of what sparked this whole thing. We just started going down the road of how can we get more people to hear about this?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and your idea was, I just wanted to talk to you about this. Yeah. And then you started going about, we really need to take her included in this. And then from there, we were supposed to do 3 podcasts or something. And then it just grew.
Yes.
And here we are today.
Here we are.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so tell us about what all this means, this new future.
Yes. So we are here to talk about blockchain and cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. And when Jasper and I talked, we realized that there's so many people out there, they hear everything about cryptocurrencies. They actually don't know what is the underlying technologies behind cryptocurrencies. It's just popping up from nowhere, right?
Sure.
So that's when you and I started talking. I said, imagine, Bitcoin is built on something called the blockchain. And then we started talking about, okay, how does blockchain work? And I said, I can give you the easy to understand version, or we can go into the nitty gritty. Remember that? So anyway, I said, the best way to describe this in an easy way is that there is a train going forward, and you will have all of these, I think it's called cabooses, where you load things on, right? And each caboose you fill with all these transactions. And then when it's full, it gets verified, and then the next caboose starts coming on. And this train just keeps going, never stops. Mm-hmm. And that's what is mining technically. And when you do each caboose, so if the first caboose is filled, you have a miner that mines it, and then he then says, okay, I want this block. It keeps going. He then continues mining for the next one, but the next block was maybe won by someone else. But he doesn't get paid until after the 6 blocks. And that's a little bit where the security features comes in. So we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty about that. But so blockchain is the fundamental underlying technology for cryptocurrency. And the miners that actually do all the mining and the transactions and all that kind of stuff, they get paid when they win the block, and they get paid in Bitcoin.
Okay. And so transactions in one of the boxcars for the train, that's code. It's just all code, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's when you say verified, tell me more about the verification process, please.
So technically, I'm going to show you if I can get the screen to work. All right. So if you look at the block here, this is a block. Mm-hmm. And in that block, you have these, it's called a hash. So if you look at this, it says TX0, TX1, TX2, and so on. So what you do is you take the TX0, and that's I am buying something from you. That's a transaction, right?
Okay.
We take that transaction and we hash that. And that transaction will become hash 0. And basically hashing what it is taking all of the information of our transaction and security coded or Yeah, you can say security code. Let's say we don't still keep it on the low end.
Please do.
So because I was going to go into all the the curve and stuff like that, but that's beside the point. But anyway, so every time you do this, you can see the transaction 1 and 0 first have their own hash. Then you take those two hashes and hash them together, and that becomes the hash 01. But now you got to imagine that each block can actually hold 250,000 transactions.
Oh, wow.
So all of those are going to be built up.
Wow.
Until in the end, you get one transaction called a TX root, which is the transaction root. And that is one hash of all of those 250,000 transactions together. So if you look at it out of a perspective of security, each of them has their own little security feature going down, and then try to solve that going backwards. Well, it takes a long time to do to resolve that.
That makes more sense.
In all of these transactions that you have small pointers. So if I want to go in and say, hey, our transaction that we did, I want to take a look at that. There are actually programs online that you can use, and you type that in, and you know that your transaction was called such and so. Then you can actually look at the transaction. You can't change it because it's on in the caboose, on the train, going forward, but you can take a look at it.
Okay, so this is really the point that sold me on it when we started talking about this, is that very idea, and the way that you put it was so brilliant, where it's bringing truth to the internet, because you can't really unravel those hashes and those transactions. Once they're done and coupled up and on the boxcar, the amount of energy and time it would take to undo them is completely not worth it.
Yeah, you know a lot. Maybe I should turn this over.
I only know that because of you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing here is that to make one block takes 10 minutes. And remember what I said about when you win a block, you don't get paid until the 6 blocks is mined. Yeah. So you will have, this is mine that I won, and then I will have 6 forward. So the 10 minutes it takes here, and then it takes another 10, another 10. So 6 times 10 is an hour. Going backwards, and let's say that I want to change that transaction 01 over here in an hour ago, using every single computer in the world to rehash everything and going back takes so much computer power and energy to do. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's if you are doing one block here and you win those 25 Bitcoins, right? Why would you want to spend that money on energy and computer power and buying all of those computers to try to solve that one transaction? So let's say that there's a transaction about something that was said. Then the idea that person could go later and say, well, I didn't say that, or that was not what was said. You can go back. There is a record of it. Yes, absolutely.
And that's the idea of the truth that can't be manipulated.
Yeah, we had that discussion before, and I actually call it the truth internet.
Yes.
Because we internet in the sense that we look at it today, you can change things and you can take a picture or whatever it is, right? And you can go in and manipulate it. But anything that goes on the blockchain, that stays there. And it becomes the truth. And that's something you can't change.
Right.
Truth on the internet.
Truth on the
internet. It's pretty wild.
It's a novel idea.
It is, definitely.
And I do think it's important because we're kind of at a point now where, just like you said, it is difficult to be able to even pinpoint what the truth is, especially on the internet, because of deep fakes and of all of the things that you can do to manipulate information.
Yes.
And so, but also it's an important point in time, because just in the time we've been talking about this for a month and a half, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the coverage that I hear in the news about cryptocurrency and blockchain and NFTs and the metaverse has gone up maybe exponentially. I mean, every day. So this future might be actually just the present world that we're living in. I mean, the future might be here is what I'm saying.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah.
I cannot agree with you more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are there. And people were talking, when we were talking about metaverse and NFTs and all that kind of stuff, which we probably want to deep dive into later on. But as an example, with the metaverse and people are talking about the Web3, we are there today.
Yes.
And maybe in just a very little scale, but we are there. And this is just going to grow as people know more and more about it. What I think is very important is that people talk a lot about cryptocurrencies and NFTs and all that kind of stuff. And it seems almost like this is just a world for those that know.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like that. It's not that hard to understand. The important thing is, how do you protect yourself from being scammed? Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, where we come in, that we will want to inform everybody. How can you protect yourself, and how can I learn about this? Where do I go to get the information?
Well, that's interesting. Like, what kind of transactions are in the cabooses and the other boxes?
Pretty much anything.
Okay.
If there is something that you can do, like an NFT, right? You can go in and hash that and put it in. You can put images in there.
Okay.
I mean, there's pretty much all kind of transactions you can do in there.
So the miners are taking information from purchasing NFTs, purchasing cryptocurrencies themselves, and they're mashing it all in together into this.
Encrypting it, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the thing here is that when people are talking, most people just know about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin blockchain, but there are different kind of blockchain. A lot of times when you talk about blockchain today, what you will hear some of the politicians talk about is the energy use. And yes, there's a lot of energy using in something called proof of work, because the proof of work is the miners using all of their mining powers and all of that electricity to solve something which is called a nonce that's also in each block. If we go back real quick, let me just explain the block, how it works. So if you look at block 10 here, right? Everything that is done in block 10 is going to be hashed. So not only all of the transactions, then the nonce, which is the algorithm that the miner is trying to solve. It's a puzzle to prove that he's actually spending all of this time to get all of the hashes and everything in his block. That is also going to be with a timestamp, because the timestamp will say, hey, I sent this out at this time, and everybody on the network checks it. And when they see that he is right, and because he was first, he wins.
Gotcha.
So the timestamp is really important. Anyway, if you take everything in block 10, that becomes one hash. Now we're encrypting that too. And that will be the first hash in block 11. So you can see how that
previous
goes
hash.
Previous hash, right?
I see.
So now we take all of the transactions in block number 11. And, let's say that we didn't do 250,000, we only did 150,000, because that's what it was, right?
Yes, only 150,000.
Yeah, or whatever. So those goes in the transaction route. So that is one hash, right? So then you have the nonce. Again, the miner is doing this algorithm to solve this little puzzle to show that he's the first one doing this.
So this is all math. It's math.
That's math,
okay.
Yes. So, and then you put the timestamp in there, you hash all of that again, and then you go into block number 12, right? So if I now am in block number 16, let's say, and I want to do a change in block number 11, and we're going to do transaction number 1, is the one that I want to change, right? I have to first, every single transaction, every single timestamp, the nonce and the previous hash, all of that stuff, I have to do that for number 16. Once that's done, I then have to go into number 15, do all the changes in that one, and then I have to go to number 14, number 13, number 12, number 11, just to change that transaction 1.
Wow.
And you can just imagine, because now I am a single miner that have to change all of those transactions for one transaction that's done in block number 11.
So it seems it's kind of like, also I'm thinking of like a really intricate web or things that are zipped together. Like you have to undo them to be able to go back in time.
It's almost like a Russian doll.
Yeah,
right.
You have to undo
I have to
these
solve
layers.
this one first to get to this one, and then I have to solve everything there, and then I have to solve everything there.
Yes.
So that's why all of that computer power to change the transaction. That's the security part of it. There's more to it too, but yeah.
Are they what happens if someone makes a mistake?
Well, then that's going to be in there, and it's going to be in there forever.
Okay.
So
let's say
that I wanted to sell you a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. And then by accident I sent you 2. Okay. Right. Well, it's going to be in there. Now you have 2 Bitcoins.
Okay.
The only way that could reverse is that you say, hey, we made an error. Let me just send that back to you, and that's going to be a new transaction.
Wow.
So
no refund.
Yeah.
Only like giving back.
Yeah.
It really does. The metaphor of it moving through time
Yeah.
completely tracks.
Yes.
Yeah, because that sort of force that it's just moving is huge to the security part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the security feature on this is fantastic.
Yes.
There is something called a 51% attack, which could happen, and that's some. Let's do that in a different episode because that all by itself is very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we really need to know more about everything before we start going into this. Technically, if you look at could it be reversed if you have supercomputers in the future? Everything is possible.
Right.
You know, everything. The question has always been, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is it worth going back to do that? Are you willing to take every single penny you have with all the computer power in the world, even if you have a supercomputer, to change one of those transactions in the past, instead of just taking what you have and move forward?
Right.
Because that takes so much less to do than going backwards.
Yes. Okay, so you've won your blockchain, and now you have some Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, what it means sort of in the world of people who use money, right?
But before we get there, I want to ask you because you just said you won your blockchain. So
you won your block, not the blockchain.
Right.
The
Okay.
blockchain is the whole thing.
Okay, so are there miners competing for like are there like tons of different miners competing, like trying to finish a block as quickly as they can?
Yes.
To be okay.
Yes.
But they don't get paid until the sixth one.
Yes.
So like theoretically, like I could like finish a block and then somebody
Start on
else
the next one.
and then somebody else could finish the next block before I finish that one.
No. When you finish this one,
Uh-huh.
it goes out on the network and it says, "Is this okay? Am I, did I win this one?" And everybody on the network says, "Yes, you are first," and it looks correct,
Ah, okay.
right? Then when everybody says, "Yes, he's correct," then immediately we start on the next block.
Everybody starts. on the next
Everybody
block.
starts all over again.
It's
So
like a
you-
huge game.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you
yes.
don't get paid until like you got to be the first one 6 times in a row.
No. You only say, so you won this block.
Uh-huh.
I win the next one. She wins the next one. Then someone else wins the next one. But after the 6 blocks is mined, it tells on the 6th block, which is also part of the hash, says that, hey, Eric was the one that actually won block number 10.
Okay,
It's time for him to
everybody.
get paid.
Okay.
So now I'm sitting there, and after an hour, I will see ching comes into my wallet.
Ah, I see.
Right, and then you that won block 11, you wait 10 minutes later, and ching,
And you'll
now
get
you
paid.
get paid.
Ah, okay, I see.
It's so smart.
That makes
It's a
sense.
great way to keep people
Yeah.
mining.
Yeah, incentives.
Keep going.
Yes.
Absolutely. If you got paid right then,
Yes.
you could just ditch out.
So what a lot of people don't know, actually, you cannot get paid twice.
Okay.
And I know we haven't discussed this before, because the thing is that there will be a point, because the Bitcoin blockchain halves every 4 years. So in the beginning, there was 50 Bitcoin, then it went down to 25, 12 and a half, 6.75, and all that kind of stuff. And eventually we'll have no Bitcoins to give. What would it be then? Why would I want to keep on doing blocks? Well, you get paid for every transaction. Every single transaction that is going into that hash, you also get paid for. So
Wow.
everybody and here's the thing. You and I are doing an exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're buying a Bitcoin from me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to do that transaction, it's a miner fee,
Okay.
and we pay that in Bitcoin. And it's very, very little.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say it's, in the old days when Bitcoin wasn't really worth anything, then it was maybe half a cent or something. Today it's much more, because Bitcoin's value is so much higher.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But we paid, he's the miner. Today you will be a miner. So we pay him a transaction fee.
Okay.
He wins the block, so he gets the 12 or 25 Bitcoins, but he also gets all the transaction fees, single little ones that was done. In the beginning,
Of 250,000?
yes.
Wow.
So you will have, in the beginning, the first block, the Genesis block that was minted by Satoshi Nakamoto, that's a whole different ballgame we're going to go into later.
We'll do the history.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
That would be super. Yes, let's do the history, how it all started and who was involved. That would be awesome. Yes, let's do it. Anyway, so he minted the first block. Well, there was only 1-2 transactions in there because he was the only one, right? And then the next block that was minted, so maybe 4 transactions. Today, all these are all pretty much full because everybody's doing transactions and all that kind of stuff. There are also other things called incentives in there. So, for instance, you and we say, I really want this transaction to go through really quickly. I am willing to pay a little extra for that.
Oh, wow.
So now he gets a little extra for that. So, of course, he gets paid in all of those Bitcoins for winning the block, but he could also get paid quite a lot for all the transactions. And the more transaction goes on, the more you get paid. So at one point, you will not get paid, I think it is 24 something, when there are no more Bitcoins to be earned from the blocks, but you will earn on the transactions instead. And at that point, every single block is probably going to be full of transactions because everybody's using Bitcoins. Because now you have the maximum amount of Bitcoins that could ever be made is 21 million. Well, imagine that everybody's doing transactions on Bitcoins. Well, each block is going to be just full.
Sure. Okay, so that's that. I feel like that's a good place to start talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you brought up that fact, because that blew my mind. I didn't know. For some reason, I thought cryptocurrency was just like infinite. There's just infinite amounts of it. Yeah. But no, right? It's limited. And that makes sense when you think about it because it's a market. So that's why the value can go up and down and depends on how many people are in transactions.
Yeah, usually something that's very scarce rises in value.
Yeah. Yes, it needs to have a limit, really. Okay. So we know about that, but there are so many other cryptocurrencies than Bitcoin, although we talk about Bitcoin the most. So what are some of the other cryptocurrencies?
Well, cryptocurrencies, you got Ethereum, you got Cardano. There's several of them.
Do they have their own blockchains as well?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
But not all of them are proof of work. They're proof of stake. And so there are... So proof of work is there's several of them. You have proof of time, you have proof of space, and all that kinds of. They're also blockchains. But to just stay on the Bitcoin blockchain, because I do think that as soon as we go into Ethereum and all of those other ones, we need to start talking about where did they come from and how were they born?
True.
Which leads us very much into something else, which is also going to take a lot of time to explain. I would like to try to stay on the track of Bitcoin and Bitcoin blockchain because there's so much more. We were mentioning a little bit earlier about the energy usage, and we have a lot of politicians out there, and it is true. We are in the Bitcoin mining community. It uses a lots and lots of energy.
Yeah, there's people that say like the energy is like harmful for the environment and things like that. So
yes, and it's a yes and no thing there because it's true. If you are, and I think that goes with anything. If you use electricity, coal mining electricity to heat up a house, well, that's not as good as solar, right? And so when you are mining for Bitcoin, you want to be in a place where the energy is cheap. And some of these countries like China and other places where a coal plant in some place where the energy was super cheap, they started building these plants. This has changed a little bit because China has said that we don't do mining anymore and they're forbidding it and all that kind of stuff. And there are reasons for that we can talk about later.
Okay.
But so what happened here in the mining industry, especially since you had Greenpeace and environmental people and politicians going, we don't want you to mine anymore because the energy used for Bitcoin is like a small country. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So the mining company started going, okay, well, if you're going after us on that, let's change the way we're thinking, how we're doing things. Can we do it in a more green way? And a good example of this is that Iceland, they have geothermal energy, right? So, which is all green. So they went in and said, well, let's start building plants here. And so Iceland at this point right now, and Norway same way, because they have water power and all that kind of stuff. So they are becoming huge miners in the world.
Oh, wow.
Because the energy is green, also abundant, and cheap.
Wow.
So now we're starting to see that too. I also, not long ago, we were talking about Ted Cruz had proposed that in Texas, you have all of these oil industries and everything, and they're doing something called flaring, which is that they burn off the gas once they're, well, I don't have to explain that. So, but why not use that and put turbines on top of that and start making energy, which we are just pumping out into space anyway. So that is green energy too. And of course, the oil industry is going, well, wait a second. Not only can I win Bitcoins by setting up servers, but I'm doing it in a green way where it's a good incentive for me. So we're starting to see more and more and more of all the proof of work mining go towards green energy. El Salvador, that has adopted Bitcoin as their currency, they are using volcanoes.
Wow.
So I don't know exactly how it works, but I know that they're using volcanoes and the energy from that to mine Bitcoin.
So it's interesting. So it's like people are really approaching problems that we've had for a long time. I mean, the excessive use of coal and fossil fuels, things that are going to run out, and then what we're pumping into the atmosphere because of it. It's interesting that this industry might really start to get people to think differently and do things differently because there's such an incentive for it. Yeah, that's really interesting.
A lot of the people that are in this industry were already very free thinking and save the world, and we want to be independent from the government and stuff like that. So for them, going green was already in the thought process.
Kind of on brand.
And there were already people doing that, and the community was already talking about how can I don't want to do this because it makes me feel bad, but I'm making so much money from the coal industry. How can I change this? So the community itself started finding solutions and say, try this and try that, and also you would have, because people are talking about just the energy we're using, but there's a lot of computers, there's a lot of video cards and stuff like that that are used for this. And of course, they run out of, as time goes, they get old or they get used or whatever. So then what do we do to not just throw them away?
Yeah.
Can we reuse them? And, how do we fix that problem? And so that whole community, there's lots of talk about that already.
It's really interesting. And it reminds me of the fact that, so Bitcoin was started by one individual, but it's not owned by any one individual.
No, it's not owned by anyone.
And that's kind of telling to me, like, what the spirit of the project is.
Yes.
It's not for one person to get really, really wealthy.
Yeah.
It's for everyone to be able to engage in this and everyone be able to make some money doing it.
Yeah. It's becoming independent from the state. It's becoming that I own what I make or what I bought. It's mine. It's not, the government can't come in and say, so let's say that you worked all your life for something, and then suddenly the currency of the world. We had a big bank crash not long ago. I mean, 2008, 2009, where they went in and said, okay, if you have $1 million in the bank, I'm sorry, but we can only give you $1 per whatever, right? So in the end, for $1 million, you ended up with 100,000 or 200,000, right? And that's not fair because I worked all my life, but if I have Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies and it's in my wallet, it's in my wallet. I own it.
Yeah. So that's the huge implication.
Yeah.
And I think why we really wanted to start doing this and involve people and have conversations and encourage people to ask questions because it's really about agency.
Yes.
Right. So we know that Walmart has already established stores in the metaverse. Right.
Yes.
And so I think about, as consumers and as citizens, we are going to be interacting in this way. I mean, quicker than we think that we are.
Oh.
And so for more people to understand what the fundamentals are and understand how this works, and that it is something where you can be in control. You can have more control over your money.
Well, and the more you are in control, the more you can do with voting and all that kind of stuff, because all of those things can be implemented in the blockchain. And as we were talking before, there are different kind of blockchains. And Walmart is already very deeply involved in blockchains and has some of their transactions and their logistics and stuff like that on blockchains too.
As does JB Hunt, right?
I think they all are actually. All of them are very interested in this way, because using one of the big pluses with all of this is that whatever the information that you store is not stored on one machine somewhere. It's stored on multiple machines everywhere.
So just like one more way that you can't hide anything or you can't change anything. Okay.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, this is a little side note from what I learned a month or so ago, is that once a week or once a month, they're taking the full block of Bitcoin blockchain and they're sending it to the space station. So once I think it is once a week or maybe once a month, it sends up there and they store it there. Wow. And then, so if all the power in the world goes out and someone starts it up again and starts a computer, all he needs to do is connect to the satellite and away we go again. So, and just imagine that, there are miners all over the world. As I said before, you have them in Iceland, you have them in Norway, you have them in El Salvador, you have it, and especially countries that are adopting Bitcoin as their currency. It's in their interest to keep it going. So and the miners, of course, are making money out of this. So they're going to keep going. So there's not one person or one country that owns it. It's spread everywhere, which also means that if you take someone that is doing logistics, right, they might have a server vault somewhere in a grotto somewhere. And not only that, do they have to keep all of that up and running, they also need a redundancy place, because if this one burns down, they need to have it there, right? So now they're paying for 2 or maybe even 3 places to keep all of this up and running. When you don't have to do that anymore because it's on a blockchain, it's spread all over the world.
Just as a part of the system, it's spread all over the world.
So that is part of, if I'm a miner, I take all of this, I always have to have a full block, because I can't attach my block to the train
until it's
if
full.
I don't have the full block with me. So you will have, let's say you have one computer with a full block and all this machine is doing the calculations, and then you add it to that block when you win, or you have to have from anybody else, which is the next block. I need to be on it. So here's my full node. It's right there. Wow. And that's what it's called. It's called the full node of the block.
The full node. Okay. Yeah. We've run out of time. This is what happens.
Yes.
Because you have such good information and we want to learn everything that we can from this.
Yeah. Time flies when you're fun.
Indeed. So, but I would just quickly want to reiterate that we do encourage people to get in touch with us, ask questions. There's a Meetup group and a Discord group. You want to give that information real quickly?
Yes. So me and a friend, we started up it's called Blockchain NWA, and you can just go to meetup.com. You can look for us there, and then you are more than welcome to join us. This is a group that discusses different kind of blockchains or anything that is blockchain related, actually, and it's fun. It's always fun. Yeah. And then of course we have our on KUAF. We do a podcast there. With my distinguished friends here. So,
and you can always get in touch with KUAF through any way and ask a question.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you are out there and you want to know more, go ahead and contact us and be part of this.
Great. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thanks.